pair of unwelcome and destructive guests named Helene and Milton have stormed their way into this year's U.S. presidential election. U.S. President Joe Biden has publicly criticized Donald Trump, telling him to get a life and to try and help people rather than spreading misinformation. Mr. Biden condemned what he called relentless disinformation and outright lies about the U.S. government's responses to the hurricanes.
Those who engage in such lies are undermining confidence in the rescue and recovery work that's opening and ongoing. As I speak, they're continuing. These lies are also harmful to those who most need help. Lives are on the line. People are in desperate situations. Have the decency to tell them the truth.
President, have you spoken with former President Trump at all?
Are you kidding me? Mr. President Trump, former President Trump, get a life, man. Help these people.
Mr. Trump has falsely claimed that federal funding is being diverted to illegal immigrants and that disaster assistance is capped at $750 U.S. Andrew Donaldson from OrdinaryTimes.com joined us to unpack this further.
An election year, so anytime you're running against an incumbent administration, the vice president now has replaced President Biden. It's going to be a political issue, but a lot of this stems from people probably needing to get a good handle on what FEMA does and doesn't do. That's the Federal Emergency Management Administration, and they're not the emergency ferry. Just because you have a natural disaster doesn't mean you wake up with money under your pillow to help you in your time of need. It's a government organization, but it's a coordinating organization, and the idea is for it to coordinate with local and states to try to handle major disasters, especially right now what's going on in America, where you have back-to-back hurricanes and a lot of aid that needs to go to a lot of places simultaneously. So when you have something like the comments of former President Trump, of course, he's going to try to make an election issue because he's running against an incumbent administration and trying to make them look bad. And then you have to pierce through the disinformation, what's really going on. So we can go to Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who says his coordination with the government in this situation has been really good. He said he's had good conversations with Biden. He had a little tiff through social media and the media with Vice President Harris, but she's not in the chain of command for this thing. He says that the government's been doing a good job with this. It's also something to note, though, that FEMA is, even though it says emergency on it, it's still a government bureaucracy. You still have to file paperwork. You still have to prove who you are. They don't just drive down the street and hand out money. And that process for people that are under pressure, under stress, had just suffers the tragedy of lost loved ones or a home or whatever the case may be, it can be very, very frustrating to have to do things like paperwork, to have to prove that you lost your house. And of course, that's going to come out on things like social media. So you got to really parse through this thing. That's fertile ground for an election year, and that's the background for a lot of this stuff. Of course, the government bureaucracy needs to be held accountable, and when they don't follow through and don't do what they need to do, they need to be held up to ridicule and scorn. However, they are doing the job, according to Ron DeSantis, who was running against this administration a few months ago. So we got to be really careful parsing through this and understand it's an election year, and that's where we're at with it.
And the Georgia Congresswoman, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who once blamed California wildfires on Jewish space lasers, has made another interesting comment regarding the government's ability to control the weather, ensuring that Hurricane Helene and Milton only hit red parts of the country.
Taylor Greene is what we would like to call in America an embarrassment. She tends to say the most explosive things she can possibly say for attention. It's ridiculous. The trope about so-and-so and different people controlling the weather is as old as the weather. So we've seen it before. It's ridiculous. What you ought to be doing as a sitting elected official is trying to find a way to help. Now, if you need to criticize somebody, you can. You're a politician. That's fine. That's within your right. But let's keep it within the realm of possibility and also not use it in ways that obviously have a lot of historical context to certain demographics and certain groups of people that could be taken that way by the wrong folks. And if you're wink, wink, nodding at it, you should be called out for it. You should stop it. And it's ridiculous.